AI is here. The genie is out of the bottle. The question is, are you coming from a place of fear about AI and the future, or are you coming from a place of love and excitement about all the possibilities of transformation of our beautiful planet? I am Heaven Hope, and this is Conversations with Goddess. If this is your first time visiting our magical channel in this part of the universe, you may want to consider subscribing and joining the global family of light. Because if you're curious about the topics that we are exploring, then you are definitely part of the global family of light. You know you are, so just... We bring you guests and information for your expansion, your elevation, your inspiration. On the show today, my guest is Brett Leonard. Brett is a filmmaker and virtual reality pioneer whose work has explored the intersection of technology, humanity, and storytelling. He first made waves in the early 1990s with his groundbreaking film, The Lawnmower Man, which used cutting-edge visual effects and virtual reality technology to tell the story of a man's transformation into a godlike being.
From the imagination comes the story of a man.
Joe, come on, boy, let's go. Grass is waiting for you.
With the mind of a child.
Yeah, Sci Man, he came to see me.
Sci Man, comics, right?
Yeah, Sci Man.
And a doctor.
Virtual reality holds a key to the evolution of the human mind.
With a vision of the future.
I have a game in my house that you might like to play. Would you like that?
Yeah. Okay. That was really bad.
I have different games. I even have one that could help make you smarter.
Now, Job Smith is about to enter the world of virtual reality.
It's gonna hit me! No, Joe, just relax. It's gonna be like being up there with the stars, Joe. They're going to another planet. His mind is like a clean, hungry sponge. You just graduated to the next level, Joe.
You're not the Lawnmower Man. Well, you've certainly changed. I don't know how you did it, but I approve.
I absorbed Latin yesterday in less than 2 hours.
Joe, where are you? Oh, Joe.
A world where the normal course of events can suddenly turn inside out.
You realize, Dr. Angelo, that my intelligence has surpassed yours.
The imaginary becomes real.
Trying to get inside my head, Joe.
You can't hide anything from me, Dr. Angelo.
And reality
We have no idea what he's gonna do.
is all in your mind.
Leonard followed up with Virtuosity, a sci-fi action thriller that explored the idea of an artificial intelligence program becoming self-aware and wreaking havoc on the world, the very thing that we are so paranoid about. He has continued to push the boundaries of storytelling and technology with various projects. In this interview, we will talk with Brett about his career, his creative process, and the ways in which he has continued to push the boundaries of storytelling and technology over the course of his fascinating career. So welcome to the show, Brett. I'm so excited that you're here.
It's great to be here.
Thank you. What inspired you to make a film about the intersection of technology and humanity? Let's start with The Lawnmower Man.
As a kid, I read literally thousands of science fiction books. I devoured the genre, H.G. Wells or Jules Verne. The idea of prognosticating on the future was something that I really always loved from a very small child onward. I don't know why, it just is in my DNA.
Brett, where do you hail from? You didn't just show up in Hollywood.
Oh, no. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, about as far away from Hollywood as you can get.
Oh my goddess, holy Toledo.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Totally. My mother, Rachel, was an extremely avid fan of cinema. In a way, I think she was a frustrated actress. She looked like an actress. She almost looked like a young Elizabeth Taylor.
Really?
And yeah, very much so. Raised on old Hollywood films that my mother was showing me. We used to watch Tearjerkers, the original Ghost and Mrs. Muir, starring Gene Tierney and Rex Harrison. And I just fell in love with movies. But she also was very eclectic in her taste, and she loved Hitchcock films. My eclectic genre taste come from the fact I was introduced to a lot of those types of genres by my mother.
When did you actually get to Hollywood?
I moved to California when I was 20 years old.
Be a filmmaker.
Absolutely knowing I was going to be a film director. I had no family, no money, nothing. I went out there with my friend and his girlfriend in their Chevy Nova with no reverse. Literally, we had to push it. But it was also metaphorical for the fact we just couldn't go back. We had to continue going west. And I landed in Santa Cruz, California, which really gave me a very eclectic understanding of what was going on in the media business, because the whole personal computer revolution was starting to happen. And the people that were doing that, like Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, were hanging out in Santa Cruz. So I, as a very young filmmaker, was hanging out with Jobs and Wozniak and all of these crazy people that were, creating our digital future.
Wow. So that's where you got this background in technology. I was wondering if you ever were a coder or you worked in Silicon Valley.
No, I came to it, I still come to it as a storyteller. Having read Jules Verne and H.G. Wells and all the great science fiction writers, Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov. And then when I was 7 or 8, I went and saw 2001: A Space Odyssey, Stanley Kubrick's masterpiece. And I turned to my dad and said, that's what I'm going to do. And he was like, yes, little Bretty, of course. I mean, I'm growing up in Toledo, Ohio. I knew I was going to do that. I started making student films when I was about 8 or 9 after I'd seen 2001. I made award-winning student films into my teens.
Really?
And, like for the Berlin International Film Festival, they had a Super 8 division because it was considered the people's medium. It was an incredible way of learning the medium. And when I was 20, I moved out to Santa Cruz. And then that started my connection with the whole computer digital stuff. And so my fascination with cinema merged with my fascination with computers and digital reality. And that's how I got involved with seeing things like virtual reality as a technology way before most people.
Oh, absolutely. You were like way ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I mean, no one had even heard the term virtual reality outside of a very small group of techno nerds. At the time I made The Lawnmower Man, I had to force New Line to put the term into the trailer. They said, no one knows what that is. What the hell? Now you can't read anything without seeing virtual this, virtual that.
Question. The Lawnmower Man and Virtuosity both explored cutting edge technology and themes that were relatively new to Hollywood at the time. What kind of pushback did you face from the studios?
Every movie is a huge tapestry of a story, of course. I was very lucky. I mean, in Lawnmower Man, which is I actually made a zombie movie before Lawnmower Man called The Dead Pit with my partner, Jamil Everett. Jamil, who you know.
Yes, I wanted to start off the show by honoring Jamil by saying that you and
I met through Jamil.
My dear soul sister and one of the most amazing goddesses ever. Who's
longer here.
I could not agree more. She was, fairly significantly older than me, and I was a very young man when she met me at 20. And she formed me. She raised me as a man. She also was the first one to really believe in me as a filmmaker. She had the passion for filmmaking and screenwriting, and so we started writing screenplays together. And she always knew that I was going to become a director, and then it happened. So we were using manifestation techniques and all kinds of things back then, which for me as a Toledo, Ohio boy, you can imagine coming from Toledo, Ohio, going to Santa Cruz and meeting Jamil, who's like this ninth dimensional goddess. So talk about my life changing. It was an amazing time.
You're only the second man that I have interviewed on Conversations with Goddess. And that is a really great intro to Conversations with Goddess because
of course, yeah.
You were actually, you said, raised and cultivated by an amazing goddess.
Formed. I mean, I was like the putty in Jamil's hands. I mean, she knew that I had talent. She was very astute, and she really understood that. We had a great, collaboration with cinema and a love for it together, but also a love for the idea of consciousness and spirituality and all the realms that Jamil was extremely in touch with, which of course for me, again, coming from Toledo, Ohio, was completely exotic and new. I got, by the time I was starting to direct films at the age of 25, I was also schooled in a lot of aspects of esoteric interdimensional reality. So the fact that I made a film with Jamil, it was really a collaboration.
What film are you referring to?
The Lawnmower Man.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, the first film we made, The Dead Pit, she loved zombie movies as much. I mean, she was a ninth dimensional goddess, but she loved horror films. And she had a lot of contradictions. Our first film, we both loved the zombie genre, and we got to make a low-budget zombie film called The Dead Pit, which was shot in Milpitas at the Agnew's Developmental Center, an abandoned insane asylum. And we had a blast. We shot the whole film in 18 days, learned feature filmmaking, and it sold very well around the world and really set us up to do The Lawnmower Man. Because the producers of The Lawnmower Man saw what we had done for a very small amount of money, and we were doing all kinds of miniature effects and explosions and prosthetics and all the stuff you put in a zombie movie. And they said, wow, we have this Stephen King short story, and we want you to adapt it. I said, well, I want to really radically adapt it, because the Stephen King short story was 7 pages about a guy who telekinetically controlled a lawnmower and chased an abusive husband and father through a room with a telekinetically controlled lawnmower. That was pretty much the story. I'm like, I can't really make a feature film just out of that.
Right. You took some significant departures from Stephen King's story.
More so than almost any other film in history. And actually, there's a whole legal history to it because of this.
Oh, wow.
Because this would never happen now. This is a different era of Hollywood where this happened. But because I said, I want to really make a movie about this thing I've discovered living in Santa Cruz, California, in the shadow of Silicon Valley, called virtual reality. And they're like, what? What's that? And so Jamil and I literally made a 20-minute educational video about what virtual reality, it's out there on YouTube somewhere, what virtual reality is and how we could portray it in a film in a way that would be very, engaging for an audience. And of course, computer graphic effects were just starting to happen, but just starting to happen on really expensive movies. Like, T2 was the same year as Lawnmower Man, and that was $120 million, with 7 minutes of digital effects. And the Lawnmower Man was $5 million with 27 minutes of digital effects. And so we had to, design to that limitation, and we had to create something that expressed this new medium of virtual reality, which was starting to be developed at that time, primarily by a man named Jaron Lanier, who had actually coined the term. And then Pierce Brosnan literally played a form of Jaron Lanier in the film. Now, if you ever met Jaron Lanier is literally a 350-pound albino guy with like dreads down past his ass.
So he did not look like Pierce Brosnan.
I mean, he's very beautiful in his own way. We're all beautiful. Right. But that's visual comedy. So my joke with Jaron is, I got Pierce Brosnan to play you, Jaron. Come on.
So was he happy about that? I hope.
Very happy, and he always had that.
And Jeff Fahey played Joe, the character.
Becomes Cyber Joe, the first character in cinema history that becomes data, that becomes AI. So a human becomes AI in The Lawnmower Man. It's actually written about in a lot of cinema textbooks as the first time that a human character becomes data, becomes AI. Now, literally what's going on right this second, it is more apropos to this moment than anyone before it. So it's kind of a crazy thing. I basically walked into the reality of the movies I made 30 years ago. That's my life.
That is so amazing. That's why I had to interview you on this show, because AI, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, they are the hot topics. The genie is out of the bottle. It is
Absolutely.
Here. So can we jump into those questions now?
Sure.
Start with Hollywood, okay? You come from the Hollywood filmmaking background. Writers are striking about it. They're able to do deep fakes on everything and everyone these days. Is this something that's going to disrupt movies and the film industry? Let's just start there.
Of course, the entire history of every artistic medium is disruption. The entire history of a technological medium like cinema is always disrupted by the technology that gets developed in any given era. Sound was a tremendous disruption to cinema. Color was a tremendous disruption. As a matter of fact, studios were like, no, that's a fad. No one wants to hear people talk in a movie. I mean, they literally thought that, and for 10 years to really establish sound in cinema from when it first started being developed. So everything has a backlash when it first comes in, especially anything that's a radical disruption that has a very changing effect of the status quo. But there's nothing to be fearful of. These are tools. These are all tools that the artist, that the human imagination can use and expand the idea of the human imagination. Expand.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you. I want you to repeat that again because that's really important, because a lot of people are terrified about the possibility of AI and how it will disrupt everything and lead to joblessness and eventually the extinction of the human race. Please speak into that.
Okay. Well, when people talk about it being the extinction of the human race, first of all, anything's possible. I'm not saying that there aren't negative, nefarious things that can happen with AI. They can. It's about the story we want to tell. Do we want to tell the story of dystopian reality where it's Skynet and Terminator and that's what happens? Or do we want to create the story with our human consciousness and the genius of the group mind to create something that is the positive aspects? Now, both will happen, okay? Both will happen. It's about what is the balance point. And so for me, as a storyteller, who was told, techno-mythology now for over 30 years, the mythopoetic nature of how technology comes into culture and how it affects us as humans and what it means to be human, that is just the natural evolution of our species. Our species has always been about technology coming from us. That's why the idea that artificial intelligence is artificial is ridiculous. There's nothing artificial about it. It's not dropping from outer space, from some other species, and we're creating it. So we can create it in the direction that we want to create it in. Now, can we evolve human consciousness fast enough so these tools do not become more and more dangerous? That's the story we need to tell. We need to create the story where we do evolve fast enough in order to utilize these tools to, expand human consciousness, expand the nature of human imagination and intimacy, and create what the new human will be. Now, many people call that transhumanism and they get all upset. I'm sorry, the entire nature of history of everything is that. Every celestial body is changing and morphing and transforming. Every molecule, every subatomic particle. So the idea from a spiritual metaphysical perspective that these things are negative coming from the outside is actually just a perception. I believe it's it's the job of the artists and of the storyteller to take the platonic responsibility to actually help guide the story in a positive direction. So that's why I'm very focused in that right now. As an example, the company I'm doing, Ubiquity VX, is about using virtual reality for health and wellness, because it happens that the technology has shown itself to have great efficacy for health and wellness.
It is possible to create AI that is actually good for humanity.
It's already happened. It's already happened. There's so many AIs that are already embedded within the context of human endeavor, human interaction, human advancement. It's just that we're at an inflection point. And that inflection point is really radical right now. The AI suddenly, it seems, got a lot better, and got to be used by everyone. Everyone can get on the internet and use AI. That's amazing. The democratization of one of the most powerful tools in the history of humankind. That fact that it's starting there, I think, is a very positive fact. Now, the way it's being developed in different areas, in the military-industrial complex, there's a lot of things that are there to be scared of. But I don't believe that fear should be the motivation. I think we should see what is the ways we could utilize this to grow what humanity is and evolve what humanity is.
So tell me, what is your best hope for AI?
That it helps us free ourselves as humans from any drudgery, that we get to actually live a more expansive interdimensional life of perception and of imagination because the AI is, and again, it's not artificial intelligence to me, it's augmented intelligence. It's amplified intelligence. It's extended intelligence from us. We're actually part of it. The idea that we're separate from it, that's where, look, separation from the other and all of that is where all suffering begins. When we feel separate from source, we feel separate from who we really are at the core of our divine being. AI is just a part of that divine being. I really believe that. And virtual experience, what I call virtual experience, that's what I call VX, is really about reaching a dimensional awareness that's already happening, but it's a medium that's reflecting to us the nature of human consciousness and allowing us to travel and expand into these new areas. So I think that's the way to utilize these tools that are coming to being. Now, every tool in the history of humankind has been used for both positive and negative things, because we are in a story here on this planet that has to do with the light and the dark. And so we have to embrace the nature of the shadow in order to understand what the positive aspects of this could really be.
Okay, so essentially you're saying AI is us. We're actually teaching them. They are learning from us, from our example, from the prompts when we do Chat GPT. And so the key here is to be a good parent, right?
Well, absolutely. And to have the intention be focused more and more. And that's where stories come in. Stories that show intention, because most of the stories around AI have been dystopian. Mm-hmm. That story, we think Skynet killing the entire human race. I mean, that's what we think about. We think about AI, you know, because of HAL 9000 in 2001: A Space Odyssey. He goes psychotic and kills the astronauts. It's like, that was a great story to tell because it's fun to tell cautionary tales. Now, I was a cautionary tale teller. Mm-hmm. The Lawnmower Man is actually a cautionary tale of virtual reality. So is Virtuosity.
Mm-hmm. Wasn't Virtuosity the first AI, the character that Russell...
Avatar, the first idea of an avatar that comes out of the computer in a kind of game.
SID 6.7, right?
SID 6.7, played by Russell Crowe, in his first major lead in a Hollywood movie.
Right.
So I was part of discovering him and bringing him over, and then Denzel, of course, played the hero. Mm-hmm. And Denzel was a big part of why I was able to cast Russell, because he supported me casting Russell, who was essentially an unknown then, and supported me with
Not anymore, that's for sure.
Well, no, but everything starts somewhere. Flew him over, he slept on my couch, I paid for a screen test. I mean, it was really the ground level. And I knew he was going to be one of the biggest stars of a generation. I knew it. We had a great time in that film.
More and more, it seems, and this is something that I had discussed at great length with some dear friends of ours, Alan Son Lundell, Dr. and Mrs. Future. I really love Alan's take on it. He says that we are evolving into a world where we can pretty much turn our thoughts into reality. So it sort of behooves us to use our imagination and our thoughts as positively as possible, and to have really good thoughts of imagining heaven on earth. And of course, AI really helping the world be a better place. So elaborate on that.
We need to focus into the positive story. Look, I like telling stories for a lot of people. 1 billion people have seen my movies at this point. So I like a large audience. It doesn't work for me without a large audience. I'm not a niche guy. I'm a commercial, global filmmaker, storyteller. So I'm trying to tell stories at a very big level now within the medium of virtual reality itself, not just cinema, that are supporting the ideas that Alan was just espousing. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. At this phase, that's really the only thing that's interesting to me. How can we really utilize and create a great legacy with this thing that many of us were part of helping birth, this idea of virtual reality and artificial intelligence? And, you know, it's been a whole cadre of humans and communities. How can we imbue that with indigenous ancient wisdom? So bring together the best aspects of the group mind of humanity in order to really fulfill the really positive aspects of what AI, not artificial, augmented intelligence and virtual experience can afford for humans.
How long do you think it will be before AI is smarter than the smartest human?
That's very soon. It's
It's
actually very
happening
soon.
fast, isn't it?
It's very soon. And it's, but there's kind of a misnomer in there. Again, it's only amplifying aspects of human intelligence. It's coming from us. So how is someone smarter? Will it be smarter in the context of doing, an incredible number of calculations? That's already happened. Computers out-calculate humans and have for a very, very long time now. So, but what about emotional intelligence? What about spiritual intelligence? What about
possible for AI?
I believe it is. I think that we have to, as you said, be good parents. I think we have to grow it up in a way so that it reflects, as Lincoln said, the better angels of our nature, as opposed to the reptilian brainstem theater that much of the patriarchy has had for the last 5,000 years. I mean, this is also akin to the rise of the divine feminine in terms of feminine intelligence. That's why it fits in with your podcast very well. And we are in the rise of the feminine and the divine feminine. And not a moment too soon, because
praise goddess, it's time.
Yeah, these tools have to be imbued with that understanding. And so for me, ever since I met Jamil, really, I have been a servant of that. That's, as a man, and as a very masculine man, I can help create in the world, but it's got to be imbued with the feminine divine intelligence, or it gets very out of balance very quickly.
Very true. Will corporations replace humans with AI workers?
Yes. Look, throughout history, there has been upheavals of what humans do as work. And the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution created tremendous disruption in that, and this is going to do that as well. That's why we have to get more into things like universal basic income, and the idea that humans' value is not about doing drudgery, because we don't need to anymore. Because when you start combining AI with robotics and what's going on with robotics right now, and I've seen some stuff, holy shit, okay? It means anything of drudgery goes away from the human palate, and we then can be more about creative life, And so in a way, artists and creators are leading away towards a use of human energy and human value that's away from the drudgery of slavery. Most jobs came out of the idea of slavery in the development of civilization. We don't want to be slaves to the agricultural revolution. We don't want to be slaves to the industrial revolution. We don't want to be slaves to the information revolution. And we don't want to be slaves to the AI revolution. We want to be freeing ourselves to express the greatest aspects of human imagination.
Oh, I'm curious, Brett, what would you most like to create now in your life? And what is your fantasy project?
Well, I'm doing it. I mean, the phase of my life where I've worked many, many years. I've, established a veteran career in Hollywood, and I don't have to do that battle anymore. I can continue to make films. I just made an inspirational sports story called Triumph during COVID that went out into theater. So I'm always going to direct cinema because I love cinema. I love filmmaking. There's nothing like it. But now I'm suddenly involved with a healthcare company because it's about utilizing these technologies that I've told stories about that help popularize them for a positive good. Our chief scientist is a man named Dr. Skip Rizzo, who is the #1 VR clinician on the planet. He runs the ICT lab at USC. He's done,
What lab?
ICT lab.
What does it stand for?
Institute of Creative Technology at USC.
Okay.
And involves medical and many other things. So he's run that now for 25 years and is also the #1 VR clinician researcher on the planet. Has been curing people with virtual reality therapy, physical therapies, occupational therapies, behavioral therapies, now for like 30 years. Skip and I got together is because he saw my movie 30 years ago, Lawnmower Man. And it changed the direction of his work when he saw the movie. He was inspired by the film. So then when I met him nearly, 15 years later, we just came together as a natural collaborators. And we've been working ever since to create a mass medium of healing around a virtual medium. I call it MIM, medicinal immersive media. So instead of a sim, like simulation, it's a MIM, which also sounds a bit more nurturing and mother-like, right? and so I want a MIM, not a sim. And so the idea of medicinal immersive media, which is what we're doing with my company, Ubiquity VX, is to help heal people, creating environments of health and wellness with virtual experience. That's what the VX is for. And the reason it's called Ubiquity VX is because we have a platform now that is delivering this within the browser with just the click of a link, just like Zoom.
Really?
So, yes, we have big money behind us now. We are making the adoption of virtual experience possible technologically, connecting it to healthcare outcomes.
Is it in the genre of virtual psychedelics?
Well, virtual psychedelics can be healing, but they can also be many other things. So, and I have a company called Virtual Psychedelics Incorporated that's developing that. This is Ubiquity VX is a more broad-based use of virtual medicine in the marketplace. And there's a lot of support for it right now because we are in a healing crisis on planet Earth. We're in a healing crisis with humans. More depression, more PTSD, more of,
anxiety, loneliness.
Anxiety, exactly. And it happens that virtual experience, because of neuroplasticity, can be extremely effective in treating these things. Wow. And that's what Skip's work has shown over 300 plus peer-reviewed papers, 25 years of clinical research. So we're basing what we're doing in the science, but delivering it with a mass market ability to deliver virtual experience.
This is Ubiquity
VX, and you can go to www.ubiquityvx.com, and that's our introductory website.
That was my next question. Where can people find out more about this and find out more about what you're up to, Brett?
That's that for Ubiquity, that's the place.
Okay, cool.
Before we're done, promo my podcast, which I do with my son Shannon, who you know.
Sure.
Shannon and I do a podcast.
Shannon has sort of become your consultant in this area, right?
Oh, we work together all the time. We worked together since he was 12. Yeah, and we have a podcast called What the F is the Metaverse, discussing all these things and talking about them from social political standards, from a metaphysical place, from what's the most current news, on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to your podcast. It's free, of course. It's What the F is the Metaverse with Brett Leonard and Shannon Leonard. So please listen.
All right. And so what the F is the Metaverse?
The Metaverse is a very, very generic term. It was actually coined by a man named Neil Stephenson in a book called Snow Crash in 1992, the same year that Lawnmower Man was released. So Lawnmower Man came out with virtual reality and Neil Stephenson came out with Metaverse the same year, 1992. I was actually attached to direct Snow Crash, but they never developed it into a film. It really means the nature of how digital technology and digital reality affect human interaction. That's what I think the broadest definition of the metaverse is about, and how we utilize this panoply of different technologies and synergize them together to create an entirely new medium. We are in the birth of a new medium, and that only comes around every 200 years or so. That's a very, very exciting time to be a creator. So anybody that's a young creator out there, you could not be in a more exciting time than right now, because new mediums are being birthed. And that's what the metaverse expresses.
What technology do you think is going to win? What tech solutions will be the most successful, adopted, and influential in the future?
Well, really the combination of things we have right now, which is immersive reality, what's called spatial computing, in the context of AI powering spatial computing. It's going to change the nature of human interaction. Now, in many ways that could be disturbing. There's more advancement in virtual porn than anywhere else. There's touch tech coming to being that blows your mind. I mean, I've seen and experienced things that are extremely intense,
like sex dolls and things like that.
Well, it's more than that. It's like you can have sex with other aspects of yourself. You can, and by the way, we showed this in Lawnmower Man. The first cyber sex scene in cinema history was in Lawnmower Man. And that's probably going to be one of the most prescient aspects of the movie, because it literally, every technology is utilized in that area first, because it's a primal reality, Now, I think there could be very positive aspects to that. There's also potentially negative.
There's an epidemic of loneliness happening on the planet today. And
yes.
I think AI and all the sex porn and that arena is going to disrupt human connection.
The idea of social media and how an entire generation and now 2 generations are interacting with social media, I believe has created an isolation, and part of our loneliness epidemic, part of the depression that's happening and anxiety comes from that separation. The good thing is that truly immersive medium like virtual experience brings us back together into a dimension where we actually can be human again in the context of interacting with each other. And I think AI can help generate aspects of that interaction in a even more imaginative form. So that's the way we need to push this technology, and as creators express in it, and then tell the story of ourselves and this technology in a way that leads to greater expression of human joy.
Just a few examples of how to do that for those of us who are creators and who are engaging with AI through all these amazing tools.
I mean, look, I'll give an example of what Shannon's doing. My son, he said, I want to create a short film that has animation, animated characters, style transfer, compositing of live action elements into animated elements. And I want to do something that usually would take 2 months to do, and I want to do it in 8 hours. Well, it took him 15 hours, but he did that in 15 hours, utilizing a string of AI tools.
There's
so many actually. Obviously, ChatGPT, Stable Diffusion, Midjourney, DALL-E 2, Runway. There's a few others that are more esoteric than that. And it's about how you combine them together. And that's the secret sauce, and utilize them as a new tool. Anyone that's trying to become a creator in any way in this new era needs to embrace these tools and learn what they are. But you still have to learn the core basics. You have to learn how light affects an object. You have to learn how a cinematic montage works. You have to learn these things so that when you use these new tools, you're imbuing them with that unique humanness in the imaginative creative realm. That's the trick. It's how we work with the tools, just like every other technology in history. It's how we interact with those tools. It's how we bring our humanness to imbue those tools and actually express the greatest aspects of that humanness with those tools.
I really think that is what we need to focus on now, because there is obviously this fear that humanity or humans are going to become obsolete.
That's insane. I mean, we are such a huge part. Now, can we become extinct because of being stupid on the planet? Yes, we can. We have to take care of Mother Gaia, and we've got to do it, or Mother Gaia is going to kick us off and the cockroaches are next. So, I mean, we can lose this paradise. Absolutely. That's what the whole climate change argument is about. The fact it's even an argument is ridiculous. We have to stop doing the things that are polluting our natural environment and changing the natural environment, which is a paradise planet. We have a paradise planet. We have water and different kinds of climate and all this amazing, beautiful things. Let's keep that and expand our human imagination with these new tools at the same time.
Beautiful.
Which really leads to more human joy. And that has to be the impetus for everything we're talking about.
Absolutely. Brett, thank you so much for your time and
Thank
for
you.
Very inspiring, uplifting visions about what is possible. Final question. The genie is out of the bottle. What are your 3 wishes for our future?
that we release the fear around the changes that are happening, that we release the fear of each other that's greater now than ever before, and that we embrace the beautiful nature of humanness and love, because that's actually the whole reason for existence. That's my 3 wishes.
Beautiful. Thank you. I agree with that completely. Sending you so much love. Thank you for joining me today on Conversations with Goddess.
Thank you, Heaven. It's great to be here.
And if you had 3 wishes for our future, what would they be? For me, I totally align with what Brett said. Let's come from a place of creating a positive story about AI. Let's align with love and a hopeful future. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and ring my bell and share this positive message out with the world.